Good morning and welcome to the 5K50 project. Today I want to talk about two quick things. First of all, the newest Zwift update and some of the changes that happened with that. And number two, my plans for Europe for my 5K50 project. So stay tuned. One of the things I've always loved about Zwift is that your in-game experience pretty much matches up with your real-world riding, meaning that if you're on a flat level surface and you're putting out 200 watts and your speed is about 20 miles an hour in the real world, you get that same result in-game with Zwift. Well, they just released a big update October 1st, and all of a sudden my in-game experience was much different than my real-world experience, and my in-game experience was much different than my previous in-game experience, meaning that all of a sudden I was much slower in-game than I was before. The biggest part of the update that they released was the ability to steer in-game. They have a little mountain bike segment that you can actually put your phone on your bike and use your phone to steer as you go down the little course. Kind of interesting. There's lots of videos on YouTube out there that explain that. I have not tried that yet. I will at some point, and I'll do a little video about that. But for me, the bigger issue was that fact that all of a sudden in game I was much slower. Why does that matter to me? After all, you're just putting out watts and you're just training. Well, for my 5K50 project, I was anticipating doing between 1,500 and 2,000 miles between now and April on Zwift. So if I'm 30% slower on Zwift, that means I'd have to ride 30% longer, and I just don't have the time every morning to do that. So I sent Zwift an email, said, hey, what's up? They said, well, calibrate your trainer, which I had already done, so I calibrated that again, did a little zero offset. That didn't work. They then said, go into your document folder and delete a couple of files and then repair your equipment. So I did that, repaired the trainer, the cadence sensor, all that. Still didn't work. Still was discovering that I was much slower in game than I was before. So here's a little screencast to show you some of the data to explain that. I first noticed this problem when I was riding one of my favorite loops here, the Jungle Desert Combo. I really like this loop. It has a little bit of uphill, a little bit downhill, a little bit of flats, but I noticed that I was way slower than I normally am. I ride this loop enough that I know kind of where I should be at a particular time, but all of a sudden I noticed I was way slower. So as I looked into the data a little bit more, so here's the Jungle Desert Combo. Here's the little map. Here's the little jungle loop down here. You come back out, go down the hill back to Watopia Island, or the main island, and you go out into the desert, which isn't showing up on this little map, but it's there. So look at a couple of the segments. Here's my downhill segment, and as I looked, sure enough, I pull up the leaderboard, and on my results, my times are usually pretty consistent. I've ridden this enough to know where I should be at, and all of a sudden after the October update, bam, I'm really slow. These two were outliers where I was doing other things, but right here I was way slower even with similar output, and I thought, what the heck is going on? So I went back and looked at the uphill segment as well. So down here a little bit further, there's the downhill segment, the uphill segment in the jungle, and same result. I looked at my overall results, and I'm usually pretty consistent. And then after the October 1st update, huge drop. So to look at it even more closely, you go down here to the leaderboards, I look at my results, and I looked at, okay, so my fastest times were all, here's the power output in the mid 200s, 278, 282, 260, 239. I was getting in the 6-minute range. Come down here to the slowest times, and here's my October after post updates, like this one right here, 256, so a similar output, but I'm way slower. So I thought, what in the heck is going on? So that is when I emailed Zwift to try to figure out what was happening with my in-game ride times. So as you can see, for the same power that I'd been previously putting out, I was much slower, and it was driving me nuts. So I continued to ride on Zwift. I continued to experiment a few things, and then yesterday, as I was riding, I discovered that once I was out of the jungle, I was cruising along at a pretty decent speed. So I started looking at a couple of different segments, looking at the desert segment to compare my speed previously with what I put out yesterday, and here's a little screencast of that segment. On the same ride, I did start to notice that my speeds on the pavement were about what I expected them to be. So I wanted to look a little bit closer. So I looked at this big, long section of almost 5 miles out in the desert flats. And sure enough, if I look at the leaderboard, looking at my results, now I haven't ridden this as much because this is a newer update, but you look at my September 30th time right here, and I was actually a little bit faster after the update. So then I come down and you can look at my results, and sure enough, on September 30th, power output 183, time of 14:37. Post update October 14th, power output's a little bit higher, and sure enough, I was a little bit faster, and that's what I expect to see. So now I really started wondering what the heck was going on, and it became pretty clear that the algorithm change that Zwift made on their big update October 1st, which Zwift has not verified, but this is just my own little conclusions, is that they changed the gravel experience so that you were actually slower on gravel than you were on pavement. Previously, you were pretty much doing the same speed on gravel as you were on pavement, and I think they have changed that to make it a little more realistic, that when you're on pavement, you're going a little faster than you would on a similar segment with a similar power output on gravel. So there it is. Slower on gravel, faster on pavement, and for me, I'll just have to avoid some gravel sections. My jungle loop I probably won't do quite as often. And is it a good thing or a bad thing? Well, probably a good thing, because like I said at the first, one of the things I like about Zwift is that it gives you pretty good real world replication of what you're doing, and to make you slower on gravel probably more realistic. So there you have it. There's the my Zwift dilemma of the week solved to my satisfaction, and hopefully that helps you wondering if you're a Zwifter out there. That explains why you might be a little bit slower on gravel. Tomorrow, Heather and I get to bolt off to Europe for a couple of weeks. Super excited about that. However, I am a little concerned about my 5K 50 project losing ground. My 5K 50 project depends on cycling miles for a large part, and I won't be doing a lot of cycling. I hope to rent a bike a couple of times to cruise around a couple of places. Hope to do some hill climbs, so we'll see how that goes. So what are my plans for my 5K 50 project in Europe? Well, I plan to do a lot of walking. So plan to track my walking through my GPS watch. Hope to do a few little city walks, do a couple little vlogs, make a few videos of the cities and the little villages we tour. We're primarily doing a small town tour of France. So hopefully you'll watch some videos, see some of the good footage we come up with of the cities that we cruise around, and I hope to get a lot of walking miles using my GPS. However, GPS won't be on all the time, not doing official walks, so probably what I'll do is take my official my step counter at the end of the day and just manually enter in how many miles my step counter has said I've covered that day, which may not be exactly accurate, but it'll be pretty close. But hopefully we'll get 3 to 5 to 7 miles a day, and those miles will add up towards my 5K 50 project. Quick little update. About 550 miles into it now, about a month and a half down. I am officially 5 pounds down as of this morning, so about on pace in both categories, feeling pretty good about things. I am a little nervous about traveling because I tend to eat a lot, especially gelato and treats on Europe trips, so we'll have to see if I can maintain at least and hopefully lose maybe a pound or two while I'm in Europe. So like the video, subscribe to see my Europe trip videos, and as well as my future videos. Thanks for joining me, and have a happy day.